It's Tuesday, July 9. In the headlines, post-Hurricane Beryl, the Building a Better Jamaica Fund is launched. Education Ministry postpones National Summer Academy. In business news, the Port Authority has resumed operations. Regionally, Caribbean workshop on migration policy commences. And in sports, King Charles hosts West Indies before first test against England. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. As Jamaicans are still picking up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl, those who are seeking a way to help can now do so through the Building a Better Jamaica Fund. The fund, to be administered by the National Commercial Bank Foundation, will facilitate contributions with the goal of raising $300 million to assist communities impacted during the passage of Hurricane Beryl on July 3 to recover and rebuild. Dozens of families are living with friends and family members because they no longer have a roof over their heads. Some have no clothes, no books, no furniture. Some have lost crops, livestock, fishing boats. Some have even lost their loved ones. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the Building a Better Jamaica Fund, which was launched at Jamaica House on Monday, is aimed at helping those affected by Hurricane Beryl.
The dimension of the crisis that we're looking at today is how do we manage public, corporate, civil society, philanthropy, and donations. That's what we're looking at today. And Mike stepping forward, as many other persons in the private sector and civil society are doing, but they may not be coming to stand in ceremony like us. And we acknowledge them and thank them and encourage them. But it is important that the government creates a space where the corporate philanthropy and the civil society philanthropy can be coordinated and organized.
Persons wishing to donate via bank transfers may do so at NCB's Mandover branch, account number 501556815 for Jamaican dollars, or US dollar account at 127 Knutsford Boulevard branch, account number 354658984. Switch code or BIC JNCB JMKX. NCB is also partnering with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management (ODPEM) through a disaster fund website, which will be a critical feature going forward.
This website will serve as our centralized source of information and statistics on the impact of Hurricane Beryl, as well as a single source to accept donations from persons who want to support the national relief effort.
Individuals locally or overseas with a Visa or MasterCard can donate by visiting the website at www.disasterfund.opm.gov.jm to make a donation. An initial $20 million has been pledged by NCB, which will match donations received up to $150 million. Chairman of NCB Financial Group Limited, Michael Lee Chin, says those who were spared should extend a helping hand to those who were not, which is why his organization is making this donation.
Our brothers and sisters in Westmoreland, South Manchester, and Hanover, their lives are completely in shambles. What are we going to do about it? Ladies and gentlemen, those of us who were spared by the guiding hand, the divine guiding hand, we have a responsibility, because had we not been spared, would have had to dig in our pockets and replace roof, replace furniture, etc., etc. But we're spared. Our brothers and sisters down the road were not spared. They'll have to dig into their pocket. And in fact, they have no pockets to dig into.
$2.5 billion. That is the amount now accessible to the government to aid in restoration efforts following the island's destruction left by Hurricane Beryl. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the funds are now accessible through the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, CCRIF policy. Minister Clark was speaking to the press on Monday. The CCRIF Tropical Cyclone Policy represents the fourth layer of the Government of Jamaica's multi-layered disaster risk financing framework. Dr. Clark has also announced that the country may utilize payouts from its contingency fund and natural disaster fund. Dr. Clark is expected to provide further details on the status of additional disaster risk financing that is available in the coming weeks. Some Jamaicans are still without electricity almost a week after the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Public Service, Damian Obligio, provided the update at a press conference on Monday afternoon, organized by Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications and Transport, Darrell Vaz. The JPS head says 40,000 people have been reconnected to the electricity grid over the last couple of days, taking the total to 570,000.
I'm very glad to say that we have 83%. We moved since this morning, Minister, from 77 to 83. So we have 573,000 out of 692,000 customers connected. So it looks like the weather helped us today very much, things that didn't happen over the weekend, in which we had to suspend several times the work due to lightning and rain.
Earlier Monday, JPS highlighted some of the communities in which they would be working. It said, however, that only some of the customers in the areas listed will be restored today.
By the end of the week. So those crews will be immediately moved into St. Elizabeth to start working. I want to be clear, we have been working in St. Elizabeth since, I think we have a call with the Prime Minister, remember, I think it was Friday. And the Prime Minister asked me, could you put a task force that immediately try to clear roads and streets in, and we did.
Mr. Obligio says equipment is not an issue.
We have all the materials needed to do the restoration, even for the most affected area in the southern coast, basically, in St. Elizabeth in particular. We have all the poles, we have all the transformers, all in the island.
Some members of the public have been voicing concerns about the utility company not moving quickly enough to restore service to all its customers following the impact of the Category 4 Hurricane Beryl last week. Due to Hurricane Beryl's impact on utilities and infrastructure, the Ministry of Education and Youth has postponed the National Summer Academy 2024, originally set for July 8, until further notice. The academy aimed to improve literacy and numeracy among students. The ministry expressed sympathy to those affected and emphasized that the postponement is to ensure the safety of students and staff. Updates on rescheduling will be provided as soon as possible. Damage assessments and school repairs are ongoing as the country recovers. For more information, contact the ministry at 876-922-1400. That's 876-922-1400, or contact the regional offices. The public is being advised that the Bog Walk Gorge in St. Catherine is now open to motoring public. That update from the Jamaica Constabulary Force. The corridor was closed to facilitate the clearing of debris from the road following the passage of Hurricane Beryl. This week, our Living Healthy report is focused on the prostate. Consultant urologist at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Belinda Morrison, gives us an in-depth lesson on what it is and the various ways a man can be affected by an unhealthy prostate.
So the prostate is a gland only found in men. And it's a very small gland, present even from a boy is born, but increasing in size as they get older.
The prostate is located below the urinary bladder in the pelvis. It's behind that lower bone in the pubic area called the pubic bone. Right in front of the rectum, that's where you'll find it.
It wraps around the urinary passage, that tube that's called the urethra. It's very small. People talk about it being the size of a walnut. If you know what a walnut is, it's quite small, but increasing in size exponentially as men increase over the age of 40 years. Now it has a function, and we say in broad terms it's an accessory gland of male reproduction.
It aids in the reproductive process by forming approximately 20% of the fluid found in semen. Now, you can live healthily without a prostate, but in its absence, you would not have normal reproduction functions. It's important to note, though, that prostate health is threatened by several risk factors due to lifestyle choices and just life in general.
So there are three major conditions that tend to affect the prostate gland. And I like to say that there are three major conditions, not only cancer, because men like to say, I have prostate, and in their mind they mean prostate cancer. But firstly, all men have a prostate. And prostate cancer, yes, is one of the common conditions affecting it, but there are others. And probably even a little bit more common is an enlargement due to age. We call this benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH for short. There's also an infection or inflammation that can affect the prostate. We call that prostatitis. So anything saying itis refers to inflammation. So this condition leads to pain either on urination or pain in the lower area overlying the bladder, or pain in the back, pain in the testes. It can make the man have blood in his semen sometimes, even blood in the urine. There are different types of prostatitis. There's an acute type that may be associated with a fever, chills, sweats, rigors, which needs to be treated emergently. Or there may be a chronic type where the man has this chronic pain and chronic urinary tract infection. Every time he does a urine test, it shows that there's an infection there. Or there may be no bacterial infection, but there's just inflammation and pain, for which he may need anti-inflammatory medication or painkillers. Now, BPH, or benign prostatic hyperplasia, seen commonly in men over the age of 40 and increasing with age and prevalence, may result in two major types of symptoms. There may be symptoms in trying to get that urine out. So the flow may be weak, or the man may get the urge to urinate, but when he goes, he has to delay or wait, or he has to strain, or he feels like everything is not coming out all at once. Or there may be the symptoms related to being able to hold the urine, where he may find that he's going very often, daytime or the nights, it wakes him up a lot. Or the worst or most severe thing is that he may not be able to pass urine. We call that in Jamaica stoppage of water, but it's really urinary retention.
We will have part 2 of this feature next week. Time now for the business report.
In the business report, the Port Authority of Jamaica says preliminary reports do not indicate any major damage to infrastructure or to equipment at any of its facilities. It says while its assessment is ongoing, all its systems appear to have withstood the effects of Hurricane Beryl. President of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, Sidney Thwaites, says the main issue his members are reporting is the lack of electricity. He says while assessments are ongoing, Manchester and St. Elizabeth appear to be the most affected. He also says in addition to light and power, his members say the transportation ecosystem also needs to be restored. The government of Jamaica's revenue collections for the month of May has surpassed expectations. During the month, the GOJ collected $4.77 billion, more than the $143.09 billion it budgeted for. This represents an increase of approximately 10.02% relative to the $129.79 billion recorded for the corresponding period in 2023. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I am Denida Rodney, sitting in for Denise Williams.
In regional news, a 3-day regional workshop aimed at developing a cohesive regional migration policy for the Caribbean commenced on Monday. Delegates were informed that this initiative represents a pivotal step towards enhancing regional cooperation and solidarity in tackling migration challenges. Trinidad and Tobago's National Security Minister, Fitzgerald Hines, addressed the opening ceremony, emphasizing the workshop's focus on a comprehensive, multi-sectoral approach to migration.
Today's gathering is a pivotal step towards fostering regional cooperation and solidarity in addressing these challenges. Discussions at this workshop, I am advised, will focus on the importance of a comprehensive, multi-sectoral approach to migration, central to which is the migration governance indicators. My understanding is that these governance indicators is a capacity building tool which provides participating countries with evidence-based policy options to strengthen the governance of migration issues.
He expressed the country's readiness to play a constructive role in developing a regional migration policy that mirrors the collective values, aspirations, and circumstances of the Caribbean nations.
Trinidad and Tobago stands ready to contribute constructively to the development of a regional migration policy that reflects our collective values and aspirations and circumstances. We value and we are committed to working with our friends at the CARICOM Secretariat, our friends in the IOM, and all the UN agencies and of course the member states as a whole. As we embark on this journey together, let us harness the expertise, the insights, and the experience that we already have among us as we are gathered here today to shape the policy framework that is in front of us. And those would respond not only to the current migration realities, but they should prepare us for future challenges.
The workshop will continue until Wednesday, July 10, with delegates engaging in the discussions aimed at formulating policies and strategies to address the complexities of migration in the region. Officials from the International Trade Center, currently in Trinidad and Tobago to assist with the development of the country's national trade strategy, have identified access to foreign exchange as a major issue during consultations. They say this will be one of the key areas addressed in the strategy moving forward. Sunil Lala reports.
A national trade strategy is currently on the cards for TNT, which will effectively enhance trade facilitation and efficiency through all stakeholders involved. And the International Trade Center, ITC, which has assisted scores of countries craft its trade strategy, is helping Trinidad and Tobago move from the current trade policy to an actual strategy. Trade Strategy Officer at the ITC, Jasmine Verdi, said the entire strategy process, which started in April, takes approximately a year, with the ITC back and forth in TNT to facilitate consultations.
The first phase is what's called the national design phase, and where we will look at, together with stakeholders, at what the issues are that is constraining trade. and work with them to identify some solutions. And then in the second phase, we will go and elaborate different sector and functional strategies, so specific sectors and specific trade support functions.
Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry, Eva Mahabir Das, explained the importance of moving ahead from the 2019-2023 trade policy to a national trade strategy.
We want to make the country grow. We want people to have jobs. We want people to have better lives. This policy will help us to focus on the things that we do well, and it will help us to do it better. It will also help us to focus on things that we can do well, and we're not really aware of it. Okay, so remember we had someone talking about a policy and it wasn't achieved? This helps us to achieve things. It helps us to focus. It helps us to identify, to focus, and to figure out how we're going to achieve it.
Mr. Verdi says the sensitization sessions held in Trinidad with various stakeholders targeted many issues which have been documented, with a major one being the access to foreign exchange.
And also the engagement of these different sector associations and the public officials. One of the things that came through was foreign exchange, the access to foreign exchange as being a binding constraint in the country. So we will work together with stakeholders to identify what is going on there, and hopefully, again, together with stakeholders and the government to identify solutions to that.
And Senior Officer at the ITC, Darius Kurek, said following implementation, there would be instant benefits.
But as I said in the presentation, change can be also immediate as soon as structures are put in place, policies, operational procedures, etc., within the government, outside the government, are put in place, and implementation is happening.
Meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. MICE tourism has become a notable niche for Barbados. The Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. aims to establish the island as a hub for corporate events. Chief Product Development Officer Marsha Elaine emphasized BTMI's commitment to partnering with various stakeholders to drive growth. She highlighted the success of promoting Barbados as a year-round travel destination.
Having Barbados host this conference certainly reflects the strides that BTMI has made in establishing the island as a preferred MICE market. In the region, our aim is to Barbados be the forefront of MICE market and conferences for the Caribbean. And having you all here visiting affords us the opportunity, of course, to showcase what Barbados has to offer and the potential of you returning as a visitor, or for what we call bleisure, which is a mixture of business and leisure. And we continue to see gains from promoting the island as a premier destination for business, leisure, as I said before, and cultural experiences. And if your schedule permits, and I was talking to some of you earlier, and I heard you had some time on Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, so I do encourage you, those of you who are visiting, to enjoy some of Barbados's unique attractions.
Guyana has embarked on an ambitious venture of getting payments to keep its vast forests intact, thereby helping to mitigate the climate crisis. This venture is Guyana's carbon credit scheme. The country's president, Dr. Ifran Ali, believes that in the years ahead, the country will be able to earn more money, possibly from continuing to protect its trees alongside its plants and animals. The head of state spoke at the Environmental Protection Agency's 28th anniversary dinner and awards ceremony on Sunday evening.
You hear a lot of people talking about the oil and gas economy, food security, manufacturing and industrial development, the changes in the infrastructure landscape. But I've consistently made a very important point. That is, one of the important planks of our economy in the future would be ecological services, climate services, and biodiversity services. These are three sets of services that Guyana would offer globally that will carry a price tag. Already we see our carbon trade has taken on a life on its own. In just 4 years, less than 4 years, we have managed to regain our position globally as a lead thinker, a lead activist, and a lead innovator on forests and forest issues. Guyana has been repositioned once again in lead position globally, and we should be proud of this. And we cannot celebrate the work of EPA without recognizing those in the forestry sector, because your brothers and sisters in the forestry sector are also doing an enormous job at ensuring that our forests and our ecological services, biodiversity services, our watersheds are kept intact so that they can be a mainstream economic developmental plank through which the country would continue to grow.
In sports, the West Indies tour of England is set to bowl off in earnest on Wednesday with the first test at the famed Lord's Cricket Ground. But ahead of that, the team made a very high-profile courtesy call.
King Charles III hosted the West Indies men's test squad at a reception in Buckingham Palace on Saturday. His Majesty spent time with Craig Brathwaite and the entire squad to talk about their tour and the recent impact of Hurricane Beryl in the region. A release from Cricket West Indies stated that the King expressed his concern and condolences for the people of the region, having had conversations the previous day with the Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honourable Dickon Mitchell, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honourable Ralph Gonsalves, and the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honourable Andrew Holness. His Majesty King Charles, head of the Commonwealth, met with every member of the West Indies touring party and received a signed shirt as a gift from the captain, who spoke on behalf of his team.
And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. And remember, we are the People's Station.